I have to try. I don't know if that's like that.
Afternoon Rotarians, got a few that I think they're still getting their salad and stuff, but we'll get started. Now Lisa's gonna pray for us today, and I would hope that you've got your gold badge on, because today's the day. It's $1 without a vote. And Lisa, could you lead us in prayer?
Yes. Have it hard. All right. Service above self. Open our eyes that we may see. Open our ears that we may hear. Touch our hearts that we may love. Clear our minds that we may think. Strengthen our hands that we may work. Amen. Watch over those who forgot their gold badges.
Yeah, if you don't have a gold badge in the card counter, you can just put your dollar in.
Yeah, I got demerits if you don't have one.
Start that over here. David, you take that card counter.
Good.
Okay. Oh, here, I can put it, change it too.
More vacation.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Forgot to.
Okay, you got your new Rotarian for the month. And John Germ is going to be our new president coming in July. We had a chance to see him speak, or hear him speak at the foundation meeting a year or so ago. Guy's great. And he's also been the one that's led the charge in the polio plus campaign for quite a long time. You want to go to page 42 and read all about him, but one of the things that really struck me is that on page 44, he was asked, what are the core qualities and character traits that every Rotarian should have? His response, most important is the core value of integrity. Without integrity, one has nothing. I bring that up because our word of the month, trade of the month for March is integrity. And the program that we're going to be doing at Edwards is Jim's going to do the shoulder box program, and we're combining courage with integrity. So I sent the note out this morning to all of the mentors. Please come. It's going to be a really important program for the school, and we definitely want you to be there and to support him. David, you have member moments.
Yep.
Because we have to let you know, Matt Matthews was supposed to do it today. I got an email from Matt. He's got an infection, a GI type of infection, which apparently is contagious. And so when we heard from him, I said, that's a great idea to stay home. So when he's recovered, he will be coming back. But today, let's hear it for David.
Thank you, Larry. Member moment. Why and when did you join Rotary? First of all, I was asked by Robert Gillen back around, I'm going to say 1990 or so, and I turned Robert down because at that time I was the only typesetter, graphic artist at Jones Printing, and I was working weekends and just didn't think I could swing the time to do it. But finally hired a couple of graphic artists a couple years later, and Richard Angel, who was, I think Richard might have been one of the original Jonesboro Rotarians. Anyway, Richard invited me, and I came to Rotary and decided to join. So joined in September 1994. Where were you born, education, and career? Well, I was born about 1 block away from here at the old Lee County Hospital, 1951, and lived in Sanford until age 12. My dad worked with Carolina Power and Light Company, and he was transferred to Chatham County, Pittsboro. So we moved to Pittsboro, and I ended up, obviously going to high school and graduating from Pittsboro High School in 1970. And our claim to fame is that I was a member of the last graduating class at Pittsboro High School. The next year it became Northwood High School. So every couple of years they have a reunion for anybody who ever went to Pittsboro High School. And I love to go to those because I'm always one of the youngest people there. I love that. after high school, I went to Pembroke State University, which is now UNC Pembroke. I graduated in 1974 with a degree in psychology. Why? I don't know. But right after college, became a social worker, and I worked for Chatham County and Lee County Social Services for about 5 years. And one of my fellow social workers, we got to be good friends, and we had both painted, house painted during summer vacations and through college to help, earn money. And we finally sat down one day and said, we could go in together and start painting houses and make more money than we are as social workers. So we did that. And we did that for a couple of years. And then another friend of mine offered me a job in the metal building sales construction field. And I was going to take that job and move to Charlotte. And my father-in-law, Andy Signer, owned Jones Printing Company. And it's kind of funny, but a week after I told him that I was taking his daughter to Charlotte, he offered for me to come work for him at Jones Printing. And for us, a couple of guys to buy the business out in a few years. So that's how I became a printer. But college degree and all that aside, I took typing class in high school. And that class has ended up being my career class, because I couldn't do what I did at Jones Printing if I didn't know how to type. So education is important. You never know what's going to pay off down the road. Family. Well, married to Carolyn. Well, we've been married 44 years. I have, she's a graduate, lifelong resident of Lee County, graduated from Sanford Central High School. Have 3 children. Greg is my oldest. He is co-owner of Carolina Forest Products. He's a forester. Chad, everybody knows Chad, he's Jonesboro Rotarian. And right now he's indoor paddle company musician. Until last week he was an insurance agent.
And playing tonight.
That's right. Chad's playing here tonight at the Flame, 6:30. My daughter, Mary Beth, is a 2nd grade teacher at Deep River Elementary School. Mary Beth Step. Hero. My hero is Robert E. Lee. Everybody in here knows I'm a big Civil War historian, Civil War buff. And not necessarily because of Lee's military accomplishments, but what he did to bring the country back together after the Civil War. His leadership helped prevent guerrilla warfare and a situation that we could be like the Middle East today, fighting each other still, guerrilla warfare, but Lee's leadership squelched any kind of that happening. What other members may not know about you? Most members here probably don't know that I'm an avid deer hunter. I've kept a diary of every single hunt I've been on since 1986. When I get home, I record the weather, what the temperature was, how many deer I saw, where I hunted, all those statistics. And I have harvested 63 deer in my life, and most of those have been archery, bow and arrow. So most people, I don't think, will know that. Wow moment. I had to really think about that, but my wow moment is 9/11. I was with a group of Stanford area Chamber of Commerce people in Washington, D.C. when the Pentagon was hit by the airplane in 9/11. And we were at it's like a conference where we would meet with we met with North Carolina's legislatures and talk to them about issues and things that we'd like to see happen, in the local area. And we were in a meeting in a building right beside the Capitol, and I distinctly remember we had just gotten in and sat down, and I heard a jet fly overhead. And I remember thinking to myself, I thought this was restricted airspace. And I just had that kind of thought, and then, just kind of blew it off. And a few minutes later, the speaker got interrupted, and they said, evacuate the building at once, the Pentagon's on fire. And of course, we didn't know what was going on. But on the way out, it was just chaos in D.C. We saw cars running in each other, wrecking, panic. And so we were trying to get back to our hotel. We finally made it. We looked over and I could see the smoke rising where the Pentagon had been, crashed into by the airline. And we finally got to our van, and we knew we couldn't leave easily because of all the congestion. And if we were going to go home the way we wanted to go home, we would have to go right by the Pentagon. We knew we couldn't do that. So it took us 11 hours to get from DC back to Sanford. So, and of course we had little, that was right when cell phones had just kind of, really hit the big time. You couldn't get a call out. Everybody was trying to call, so it was hours before we could talk to our families and know that we were okay and all that. So. Yeah, Yvonne was with us in that group. So that's it. That's my well number. Thank you.
And I do have in that bag, in one of the pockets, you're going to find 3 bags of M&Ms. And you got her, it's like an Easter egg. They're deep down in the back. Thank you, David. And we hope Matt is able to get back with us soon, and we'll do the member ones for us sometime later in March. I hadn't planned to do the February Rotarian of the month until next week, but due to conditions beyond my control, we're going to present this week, and probably talk about it next week because I got something else to bring next week. And that would be, we're going to honor John Ramsey, because John really does so much for this club. I mean, you can go through a list, and this is not a complete list. Youth services, the 4-way test contest. Now that's the reason, John, we apparently is going to be transferred month to month.
Is this Alfred Nobel on the front of it?
And the people
Kind of looks like it.
The Nobel Prize for Real Estate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Robert's office was saying, would you take that gold medal off, please? So anyway, you get it. But he's a webmaster. He's the Bolton publisher, gets the information out from all the guys right home. Fills in for meetings if I can't be here. John's always up in the front, run the meeting. I mean, there's a huge list of things. And so I will have something to present formally to you next week, in addition to your gold medal. But we'll have a chief of staff badge for you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Quickly, I mean, I hope everybody's seen the Rotarian, Meet My Rotarian. This is the article that was in there for Jim and the shelter box. I'll send it around so that you see what's there, but please go to the Piedmont Rotarian and read it. Cots of Gold, we're about 650 tickets sold. We got 350 more to go. We need that to happen. Next week, Nash Adkins will join us. She was thinking about, or interested in joining this week, but we wanted Kevin to be here, and he was working today. His shift in Pittsburgh was day shift, so he's coming next week, and Nash will join us. John, the 4-way test, and CT did well.
Yes.
He didn't come away with the top prize, right?
Yeah, the TC Man did well to, you probably saw this in the bulletin that I sent out, but TC Man loved doing it. His mom, Missy, and of course his dad is our mayor, Cutman. But really enjoyed the process and thanked the club for the opportunity. And Missy had said that the competition was high, which is fantastic. You would want, of the 49 clubs, I think they had 8 or 9 representatives there. But TC did a great job with us, so it must have been high. But yeah.
Is he the same mayor's kid who had the band?
Yes.
That
Yes.
band was really good.
Oh, yeah.
They still, it's
Yeah,
like-
it's the same. TC's in the band, that's correct.
Okay.
But TC's a senior at the senior high school.
And when I talked to Chad about a week ago, I was in his office, and he said, you have no idea what this means to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it means to, let's see, yeah,
It does.
because a year ago, CT was not interested in standing up in front of people and talking.
Yep.
And because of some of the exposure that's happened over this last year, he's really blossomed.
He really has.
It's neat to see, and it's neat for us to be involved in.
Well, and you know, organically, and David Spivey, thanks you for posting it on the Facebook. Organically, this has gotten out, and so sure, it's an attaboy for us, and thank you. That's wonderful, and hopefully we're humble in our achievements. But yes, what we're putting up for leadership training for TC is paying off many dividends, I think.
Thank you.
Very nice thing, yeah, sure.
As you saw on the paper today, probably, John Maxwell is going to be joining the hospital as our CEO. The hospital, David's already working on it to come and visit. I'm sure Doug will as well. And the last thing I have is there's a board meeting right after this meeting. Anybody that wants to come can come as a makeup, but we've got some important things to cover in the board meeting. Now, I want to introduce Lisa, who will introduce her colleague. And it's all about the Alzheimer's program that the district is very much in support of and has been for some time. And we're going to put a major emphasis on this with Dave Shabazz leading the charge on it in the second quarter. So, Lisa, could I ask you to introduce Gary?
Yes, okay, so Gary Everhart will be speaking today. I've known Gary for a little over a year now, but he has over 20-some years of experience in the industry before coming to work with us at Thrive. He has a wife and 2 children. Emerson will be 6, and his son Oliver, 3.5. And I've met them, and he actually loves his wife and children, which I just point that out because lots of people can have a wife, but to care about her at the same time is special. So he's apparently a decent soccer player, and also a good Christian and a great guy. And he's going to be talking about the CART program because he has a real passion for Alzheimer's and for caring for the elderly, and this is something that Gary just took on, and we've been hearing about it at work, I can tell you. So now we're going to be hearing about it here too. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my colleague, Lisa Whaley. Thank you for that kind introduction. Lisa's going to scroll through these as we go along a little bit. And for the videographer today, I like to walk around a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm going to put you to work. It's just I like to scroll, so we're going to do that just a little bit. But as Lisa said, yes, Gary Everhart, I'm junior. In some facets of my family, I'm still called Little Gary, which I like. My 90-year-old grandmother still calls me Little Gary. And I really love her a lot. I'm going to talk about her a little bit today as well. My wife, Carrie, as well. Lisa mentioned her a little bit. I mean, I literally married up. She's about this tall. And she's beautiful, and she's given us 2 beautiful children. And I'll talk about my kids a little bit today, too. Emerson, our daughter, will be 6 in about 3 weeks. She's already been telling us that she is 6, and then she wants to be 7. I said, fine, you're in kindergarten, we're going to put you in 1st grade. That shut that down pretty quickly. She's not ready to go to 1st grade yet. Emerson is, she's our little gymnast. She's tall and skinny like her mama. She weighs 42 pounds. She will be 6. My 3.5-year-old son, Oliver, is built a little bit more like me. He's 3.5, he weighs 45 pounds. And yes, he wins most of the fights in the family. I love my children, and I want my children to know Alzheimer's. Not the Alzheimer's that you and I know today. Not the Alzheimer's that affects nearly every family in this room today. Not the Alzheimer's that took my granddaddy away from our family in 2006 before he died on Christmas Day 2 years later. So what will we cover today? We're going to talk about what is Alzheimer's. We don't have to get too deep into that. Can I just, by show of hands, immediate family member, or really it's affected you directly, either from a caregiving perspective, you know, that's a lot. Sometimes it's about 30 to 50% of the club, but this is a lot. How does Alzheimer's affect the brain? What is CART? A little CART history. Sample CART grantee. So what do you need to know about Alzheimer's? Well, it is a complex, age-related, insidious, irreversible brain disorder. When Bill Shillito, who's the executive director for CART, sent me this slideshow about 4 years ago, PowerPoint presentation, I made a few changes to it, you know, threw in some of my own pictures, and you'll see those in a few minutes. But I added the word insidious. When you think about insidious, think about what that really means. It means pure, unadulterated evil. That is what Alzheimer's is. And if you know someone with Alzheimer's, that's probably what it's going to turn into for you, your family members, or a caregiver. Alzheimer's generally begins as gradual cognitive decline, and then it ends in complete and total organ failure and ultimately death. It is brain failure, it's a progressive brain disorder. You can read the rest, you don't need me to do that for you here. But the part about making judgments is really important, because so many times, especially if you are a caregiver, you're dealing with someone who has Alzheimer's, they may seem perfectly normal. They may fool other people. But if you know that it's going on, then you know that the cognitive impairment is going to cause problem with judgments. Like, for instance, I want to keep driving. My grandfather wanted to keep driving, and he kept wanting to keep driving. And then finally one day, I think this was a blessing, he got rear-ended while getting ready to turn onto the road there in High Point, North Carolina, where they lived. Technically, it totaled the car. Didn't really hurt either my grandfather or my grandmother. She was riding shotgun, and she would tell him how to go and where to go and all this. And so just a few months later, my grandfather couldn't even say what a car was. He would tell my dad, "Listen, boy, I want to go down there, and I want to get that thing, and I want to take her, and I want to go down there." So should he have been driving at that point? Absolutely not. But it's difficult when you want to take, anybody ever taken a key away from their parent? Taking cars away? Good gracious. That's coming for me in about 2 years, I'm afraid. 3 kids? Yeah, that too. So Alzheimer's disease. It is not normal aging. It is a progressive fatal disease. The cause is presently unknown, and Alzheimer's has no cure. But we're working on that. Rotary is working hard on that. This is a little bit of the history of CART. In October of this past year, for the first time it hit me that CART had been around for 20 years, and I really couldn't believe it. October of 1995, a little club in Sumter, South Carolina, started taking buckets, putting them on the tables. The buckets didn't look like this. In fact, I think somebody brought a little pail in from their house and just said, "Hey, let's start throwing some change in and see what that adds up to." Well, then it became, the CART program, as they called it, became adopted by that club, then the district in 1996. And then in 1999, after many other districts had taken CART up, first grant of $100,000 was made to Emory University's Alzheimer's Research Center under the leadership of Dr. Alan Levy. I'm going to come back to Dr. Levy in just a minute. Some really good news there. 18 months, January of 1999 until June of 2000, 10 more Rotary districts, including our illustrious district here in 7690, adopted the CART program. Then we had districts in Tennessee, West Virginia. We've got a club in Australia has joined as well. This next part, I really want to focus on this. You know, I think about, I was speaking to Chris about the Salvation Army. You know, you've got a lot of different charities out there, and what's one of the things that comes up in the news a lot today? Well, you've got issues with people taking money that they shouldn't take, or you know, what percentage of the dollars that goes into the fundraisers actually goes towards that cause. And you can't get any better than 100%. So 100% of all the funds that goes into those blue buckets goes directly to grantees who are on the cutting edge of Alzheimer's research. The buckets are donated by an anonymous donor. Bill Shillito, our executive director, is paid a very small salary, which has gotten a lot smaller because as we take the money in and we go find local banks that will allow us to put it into a 6-month CD, what's happened to interest rates? Exactly. So we're able to make a little bit of money off of the money that we gather, but again, 100%, and that's why one of the reasons that I'm so proud to represent CART and everything that we do. 1999, we talked about the very first CART Fund grant recipient. We got big news in 2014. What was that big news? Well, Dr. Alan Levy is still at Emory University. He took that $100,000 grant that we first gave him in 1999, and he's parlayed it into some pretty big results over the last 16 years. In fact, the National Institutes of Health in 2014 gave Emory University a grant for $7.2 million. That seed money, that little change that started going into that bucket back in 1999, Dr. Levy will tell you that was the beginning of his opportunity that he had to do the research that he needed to do. So as you take your spare change today, or in the coming weeks, coming months, just know what it can turn into. A little seed can be planted and something really great can come out of it. That return on investment is just incredible, knowing that. Another good example, 2005, UCLA, Dr. Gary Small, did testing the effects of a cancer drug on the brains of Alzheimer's-induced mice. And yes, the drug was a dismal failure in fighting cancer, but guess what? It has shown great promise in the fight against Alzheimer's. I already talked about Dr. Alan Levy there. And so we look at how that works, and we look at the fact that if we're giving money today to folks who are on the cutting edge of research that allows them to do greater research, that allows them to get under the radar, or over the radar, excuse me, for the National Institutes of Health and some other big organizations, we're doing some great things. So what causes Alzheimer's disease? Well, we don't know for sure. There is an amyloid hypothesis. These are the plaques and tangles in brain tissue. I know this is difficult to believe, but Doug, that's actually my brain right there. That is I'm kidding. I'm making sure everybody's awake. This is a post-mortem slide of some brain tissue taken from someone who was an Alzheimer's patient. You can see there the plaques and the tangles that are forming. And when we look at what happens, it's a breakdown of communication. The neurons, we have literally 100 billion nerve cells or neurons creating a branching network in our brains. Signals traveling through the neuron forest form memories, thoughts, and feelings. So what does Alzheimer's do? Well, it destroys those neurons. Actually causes brain shrinkage. You can see here, normal brain on the left, and yes, that is my brain on the right. It's true. Now that's an Alzheimer's brain. We see about 40% shrinkage in that brain right there. And we see that in a lot of Alzheimer's patients today. Diagnostic imaging, showing the normal brain up top. Again, my brain on the bottom, where you're looking at the clouding of memories and the ability to reason and make judgment because of the inflammation. So, due to Alzheimer's, we eventually lose contact with the individual that we knew. But the question is this: how do we know what they're thinking and feeling when they cannot tell us? My grandfather, when it got to a certain point where he was becoming a little bit ornery, a little more testy, he would walk by a mirror in the house and say, who's that? What's that man doing here? He didn't recognize himself anymore. And so I'm going to show you how Alzheimer's patients see themselves. How do we know this? Well, here's William Utemolen. He was an artist, sketch artist, 1967. You can see what happened. In the mid-90s, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And over those years, moving towards his death, you can see what the picture of himself became. And when he did the last portrait in 2000, he was still just able to talk enough to tell the person at the facility that he was at that he didn't want to see that man anymore. This is the 2015 CART board meeting. Just this past year, I'll be going down again in May. We meet in Columbia on the first weekend of May. We bring in all of our grantees. By the way, all the money that comes in, we choose from a board. Dr. Alan Levy's on that board. Many other researchers around the United States. to help look at what has now turned into over 200 applications that we've gotten this year for our grants. So you might recognize Rick Snyder, Larry and Dolores were there. We gave away $500,000 to 3 different grant recipients. Who are those grant recipients? Well, not those guys right there. Hey, that's okay. You get back there in just a minute. Who were those grant recipients? One of them was doing some really tremendous research on the circadian clock. Can anybody tell me what the circadian clock is? And no, it's not a clock made in Circadia. Anybody? That's right. Everybody, we just had some senior moments in here. Is everybody okay? The circadian clock, that's okay. I've had 3 since I started. The circadian clock is basically when our body tells us to wake up and when it tells us to go to sleep. Sundowning is something that's very common in Alzheimer's folks because as the sun starts going down, they get very anxious because they start getting tired and they don't understand. For my grandfather, for instance, he would go to bed at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, and my grandmother, who was a primary caregiver, would get woken up to this on the kitchen table at about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was dark, but he was up and he was ready for his breakfast. That was very difficult on her. Real quick, I'm going to get to something before we get to those little boogers that you were showing there. Anybody in here like to reduce their risk of developing Alzheimer's by over 50%? Anybody? Yeah, I thought we could do. Oh, that's right, we forgot to do our calisthenics. So that's one of the things. Exercise is great. Everybody ready to do some? No club has ever taken me up on that, and I don't understand why. I would encourage you.
We've meditated before, so we might be into it.
That's good. That's good.
I'll make him do jumping jacks next week.
That's good. So exercise obviously is great. Staying active is great. You know what? Having a social network is great. Having people that you come into contact with, that you're finding out more about them, and asking questions and spending time with folks. Very good. You know, the little newspaper, the crosswords, all that stuff, that's great too. But I'm telling you, there are some brilliant minds out there that have been taken by Alzheimer's. We'll get to one of those in just a minute. By the way, if I could just, if you guys could humor me just a second before I tell you about how to either prevent or delay Alzheimer's. For those of us who reach age 85 in this room, there's about a 50% chance that we're going to develop some form of dementia. So if you could just humor me for a second, just turn to the person beside you or across the table from you, just look at them for just a second. Just for a second, okay? Now I know what you're thinking. You're hoping it's them, but they're hoping it's you. That's okay. That's all right. So how do we reduce the risk of Alzheimer's by 50%? I have a list of things up here. I'm going to hit a couple of them real quick. Anybody here like Indian food? Curry? Yeah? Curry is a great way to get something that's called curcumin. Turmeric is the actual compound that's in it, or maybe it's curcumin's the compound, turmeric's the spice.
Is that Indian for diarrhea?
Anybody? I'm sorry?
Is that Indian for diarrhea?
What? Turmeric?
Sorry, there goes President.
Dave, I was told I'd beat you today. I'm glad to
I'm not a fan of Indian food.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, you know, and there's different Thai food. Sometimes there's curry in there, but it's a compound called curcumin. I actually take it now. If I'm abiding by the 4-way test, I have not taken mine today, but I can tell you that curcumin is a very potent anti-inflammatory. So if you have arthritis, if you have diabetes, if you know anybody who does, or if you know there's a risk in your family, or even if you just want to be healthier, I would highly recommend on a daily basis taking turmeric, curcumin. Now, unfortunately, I broke the cap on this recently, so don't hold it by the cap, but I'm just going to pass this around so everybody can kind of take a look at it. If you'd like to take a note, take a picture of it with your phone or whatever, I think it'd be a great idea for you to incorporate that into your diet. Vitamin D. You know, we're coming into the spring here soon, but who's gotten any sun lately? Anybody? Yeah, vitamin D is a great way to be healthier, especially in flu season like it is. You look a little pink. So when we look at
I like to get out.
when we look at how we're being healthy, I actually take 5,000 IUs a day of vitamin D. It helps, helps boost the immune system and can help prevent or delay Alzheimer's as well. Green tea. Unfortunately, what we have here today, what we drink, the sweet tea or unsweetened, is black tea. But if you drink green tea on a regular basis, brew it yourself, fantastic, then that's something that can definitely help you. In fact, if you took curcumin every day, took 5,000 IUs of vitamin D, a vitamin B multi, and drank some green tea, you would probably reduce your risk of Alzheimer's by 50%. It's amazing that just a little tweak perhaps to your health. So these grantees that I was talking to you about, what do they tell us? When we give somebody $250,000 or $300,000 for a grant, what do they tell us? Well, they give us information, and we really like it when they talk down on our level, as opposed to talking way over our heads. They tell us about microglia. Microglia are little soldiers in our brains that help repair damage from concussions and other trauma, especially when we're young. But these same little soldiers, unfortunately, compound the problem of Alzheimer's when plaques and tangles begin to show up. Interesting. So the question is, can we manipulate those microglia, reprogram them, or maybe simply turn them off? And that's one of the grantees that we're working with right now, is seeing what we can do about microglia. Also, back to the curcumin, within a few years, there's going to be a retinal eye scan that if you take curcumin on a regular basis, because it does bypass the blood-brain barrier, it gets up in your brain and it will actually attack the plaques and tangles. It's that potent of an anti-inflammatory. Looking in through the retina with a specific type of light, Dr. Maya is what I call her because I can't pronounce her last name, is working on a scan that will be able to look into a 45-year, I know you're wondering, there's no way you can be 45, a 45-year-old's eyes and be able to see if there's a glow back there. That means that, number one, the curcumin has bypassed my blood-brain barrier, difficult for me to say. Number two, probably means I got some plaques and tangles in there because it's actually fighting them in my brain. Very interesting. And there's, I guess, maybe an ethical component to that too. Do I really want to know? Do I really want to know if I've got those tangles in there? Well, that may allow for us to treat them earlier. Please continue. All right, so there's those boogers I was talking about. Was anybody at district conference this past year?
Yeah.
Yeah? There? Okay. Did you get shaken down by these little boogers?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my kids, it was Family of Rotary last year. We brought them to Roanoke, and they're walking around with buckets, pulling on people. I told my son, I said, son, be careful where you pull on somebody's pants and make sure it's a man. But shaking people down for money, for card. Do you know that we raised $1,300 at district conference last year just for people giving of themselves? I'll tell you one more thing too, and I don't want you to save this money. In fact, it'd probably be good for me to take whatever you have currently. But I will tell you this, if you're traveling to district conference this year, there will be, and it was just announced again, there will be an anonymous match for up to $1,000 for money that comes in during district conference. So I would encourage you, if you're not going to district conference, save your dollars a little bit and send them with somebody who is going. Oh, let's see. Moving on. Many of you may know these two gentlemen here, may remember them. One thing that Lisa didn't tell you, because I didn't give her a full bio, is that I am literally Tar Heel born and Tar Heel bred. My father was a senior at Carolina when I was born there in 1970. One of my favorite pictures is of my dad in his cap and gown, my mom, and me in this little Carolina blue jumper as a 6-month-old baby. So, yes, near and dear to my heart, these two right here. Dean Smith had a mind like a steel trap. When a biographer was writing his book and would ask Dean about some of the like, Dean, what was your greatest mistake or what was your greatest regret? Dean would start telling him about the timeout he should have called against Maryland in 1976 or the substitution that he made against Duke in 1971 when he knew that he really shouldn't have sent that guy in, and would name these and would talk about, it was at this point during the game. Mind like a steel trap. One of my fraternity brothers had the opportunity to meet Dean just a few years after he, really right before Dean retired. I think it was 95 or 96, and met him in a little convenience store in Washington, D.C. My friend Ross was going up to buy a pack of Camel Lights, and this gentleman in front of him got a pack of Marlboro Reds. Many folks don't know this, but Dean was a very heavy smoker. If you smoke, I would recommend you don't smoke, but it's a choice. And to see a mind like that to be taken by Alzheimer's. Ross introduced himself to the coach. Coach took a couple minutes to talk to him, and they went on their way. It was about 10 or 12 years later when Ross saw Coach Smith at a function and went to introduce himself. And Dean said, "Ross Rollins." "Yeah, I remember you. We met at a convenience store up in Alexandria, Virginia." He said, "Man, you busted me buying cigarettes that day, didn't you?" He said, "By the way, how are your parents? Are they still living in the Fayetteville area? And your sister? She was dating somebody. Did she get married?" I mean, this is the mind of that man. And to see Alzheimer's be able to do that, it's just unbelievable. So, I want each of you to know the toll that Alzheimer's takes on a family. Some here may be living it right now. My prayers are with you. Some might have even lost loved ones recently. So I told you at the beginning of my presentation today that I wanted my children to know Alzheimer's. They don't have a clue what Alzheimer's is right now. They don't really understand why Daddy keeps taking blue buckets all over the place with him to speak to clubs, or why he wears a shiny pin on his suit jacket. But they do know how to ask for money, just like they did last year. You see, Alzheimer's isn't just about the journey at the end of someone else's life. This is Christmas of 2014. This is my grandmother Violet. She aged over 20 years in the 8 years that she tried to be a caregiver to her husband of over 60 years. So if you do know someone who is currently a caregiver for a loved one with Alzheimer's, there's a good chance they may end up in worse shape than the one they cared for. We celebrated Grandmama's 90th birthday in High Point together with countless family and friends. I saw her a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, she can no longer speak. Hospice has moved in to help with Grandmama in her last days, and you can see the toll that caregiving takes. So in summation, I want my children to know Alzheimer's the way they will also know polio, that there once was a dreaded disease that killed a lot of people, including their great-granddaddy, and that Rotary made it go away. Thank you.
Gary, we thank you so much for bringing the message, and also Gary's going to spend a few minutes with us at the board meeting afterwards, because the buckets are good, but we want to try to come up with something that we can augment that money with, and report to the district at the district conference what we plan to do. But you bring a marvelous message with a passion to it, and we'll try to pick it up and see what we can do in the next quarter. And could we turn to you for the
Yes.
Sergeant at Arms and the tickets?
Yeah, Mr. Bill Johnson, you have an announcement.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, not this Saturday, but next Saturday is Stop Hunger Now. I've got several people that have signed up. If somebody else needs to sign up, I got another sign-up sheet. I would ask some of you that are coming in the morning, if you can, 10 o'clock is the shift start, but we need a few people to be there at 9 o'clock to set up. Thank you, Van. And Ed's coming.
I'll be putting that safety belt on for heavy lifting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, some of that stuff without the handles on it. Woo!
I've got a shoulder problem, and I don't know if I can lift that
I'll help you
50-pound
out.
bag. So, but I'll be there. The truck should be there about 9 o'clock. So I'll be there probably 20 to 9. And if you can come just
What
early,
about some of our 4-H people? Should we get in touch with Bill and have him come a little early?
I'll send him an email and see if he can do
Because
that.
you got a lot of strong kids coming.
Yeah. I'll see if he can. But I know they're coming early, and I did get
Young commissioners?
the CUOC get people
Yeah.
from yeah, there it is, Alzheimer's. From your wife.
Yeah, great.
Give him some curcumin. Where'd that stuff go?
And you know what? I take 2 of those a day. I have been taking them for about a year now, but it was primarily because my joints started really hurting me. And I read in the People's Pharmacy that it was great for inflammation. And I'm just glad that it's going to help my brain too, because I got some problems.
You might think of a third one.
Okay, in case we're going to be out at the fairgrounds at the Lions Club building.
That's Saturday the 12th?
Saturday, the 12th of March. Not this coming Saturday, but the
Thank you,
following.
Neil. Thank you all. Doris, you have an announcement.
Yeah, I am continuing to sell tickets to the Harlem Ambassadors. It's March the 21st. Adults are $10, students are $5. But let me tell you who's going to be playing, because we've got some great people. Chris Kelly is going to be playing for the Sanford All-Stars. Chet Mann, the mayor. Let's see, Jeff Yao, Tom Snell, Brad Simpson, Brad Salmon, Robert Reeves, Will Harris, the coach of Southern League, Gaston Collins, Meg Moss, Wayne Staten. So this is going to be a fun event. So see me if you'd like to buy tickets. Thanks.
Doug, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ed Mishler, you've got an announcement.
I just wanted to very briefly mention the benefactors for the Rotary Foundation. While I was enjoying the warm weather in Florida, Larry passed out envelopes to those people we'd like to have consider becoming benefactors. So we'd like to have this done by the end of the month if we could, or the first part of April.
Right, we're trying to do the Triple Crown if we can by the end of the month.
So please keep that in mind. There are different ways to become a benefactor. The way in the envelope was by saying I intend that my heirs donate $1,000. Thank you.
Ed, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any announcements coming for the club at this time? How about any brag? Anybody got something?
I have a brag.
Woo, woo, woo.
I have a brag.
Okay,
So,
Lisa.
I hope that you all read your Sanford Herald yesterday, and you might have noticed that on the cover of the special section, the article about the old lady who was in the army, that's my grandmother. So, and I'm very proud of her. My daughter, Dorothy, is named after her, and she lives at the Bayberry, and she's still with it. She can't see or hear real great, but she's happy to have visitors, like really, really loves visitors. One thing she especially loves is to dance, and she's always complaining that at her age there aren't a lot of men around. It's mostly just other ladies. So for some of you fellas, the way the Bayberry works, you don't need to make like an appointment or ask for my permission or whatever. You can just go by there and ask to see her and have a cup of coffee and say hi and hear about the war. And this wasn't even in the paper, but she grew up in Chicago, like right around the corner from like Al Capone and some other. There's a whole lot of interesting stories there. She plays poker. She's great. So that was my brag. Also, a shout out to Dave because he came by with some extra copies of the paper for us to send out to family and stuff. And my mom says thank you too.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, I read Facebook last week, the problems that you had when you got out.
Oh.
Oh, that's right.
That's another story.
Chris, Mr. Perfect Attendance has an announcement.
Hey, Mr. Perfect Attendance, I don't have a brag, I have an announcement. Temple Theater, our biggest in-house fundraiser of the year is Saturday at 6:30. It's a vaudeville-style variety show, so there'll be all kinds of hijinks, comedy, good stuff. I don't know what it's going to look like. First rehearsal's tonight, so it'll be fun. The $25 come on out. There'll be prizes, bingo, plenty of beverages, adult and otherwise. So come on out Saturday at 6:30.
Terry, you got something you're proud of today.
Yes, I'll celebrate our mother 22/88 birthday, leap year. She's 22, and we had 215 guests.
Wow. Okay, anybody else got anything they want to brag on or announce?
I'll take one more.
Yeah, Mr. Day.
You guys know it is March, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So March is here. March Madness. I'll probably have more beer and wings this month than I've had all year, but that's okay. Last Saturday, Vanderbilt beat Kentucky. Matthew got 20.
That was a great game.
Good game.
When did you get 20?
They got 20 against Kentucky. They played Tennessee Tuesday. They won. They're at Texas A&M Saturday at 12 on ESPN2.
Gary wants to know who you're talking about.
My nephew plays for Vanderbilt, and
Matthew
Fisher Davis is his last name. And they play at A&M Saturday at noon, ESPN2. And if all the stars line right, there is a possibility that they could win the SEC. But Kentucky's got to lose, and a couple of things have to happen. So
Is he free on the 21st that might join the COC team?
yeah,
Do they have enough wins to get in the NCAA now?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they do. So of course
It's not
that
over.
one sure helped.
Yeah,
So-
it's not over.
But anyway,
Thank you,
Hope
Commissioner.
you know. I went over once that game.
Okay,
Said, "Man, that guy
Gary,
was
would you help
yelling."
us draw this ticket? In the meantime, Will, do you have the blue tickets?
Could I just chime in one more thing? I mean, for those of you who want to stick around and talk to Gary about CART and everything, Gary's not my boss, but if you want to tell him nice things about me, he does see my boss more often than I do, because I think they're closer, so.
This is gonna take a while.
No, I'm not as young as I used to be. Bill Sowers, sold
Oh,
by.
my gosh, he's one of the tennis players.
that's right.
Yeah, Gary.
Good job, Bill.
Yeah.
Lucky
Please give me the ticket, because my tennis players are giving me so much trouble about donating year after year after year and not getting anything. We're gonna make a big affair out of this one. Put it in the Herald. And Will, for your tickets, how about Lisa? Lisa gets all of them.
Oh, yeah, we got
How come we're not winning?
57.
315-9041.
Oh,
David
you know, I invited Cameron Sharp to come. He won last week. He's really interested in joining. And I told him that if he comes this week, we would exclude him from the 50-50. He walked away with $50.
All right.
Okay, and we need to do the four-way test and the pledge. And will we be led in the four-way test?
Four-way test, the things we say or do. First,
Is the truth.
Is to merit all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships. Will it be beneficial to all concerned. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Line up to say nice things about Lisa right up here. Board meeting in the bar.
In the bar. Oh, yes. Yes.
She picked someone to